then he later retracted that statement. Battles are still going on around other population centres.
Weapons of war at a children's playground in Kharkiv. These images uploaded to social media purportedly show Russian soldiers. The person filming says they are shooting at houses. But they run into fierce resistance. A trail of Russian reconnaissance vehicles is left smoldering as Ukrainian soldiers drive the Russian army back out of Ukraine's second largest city. The regional governor says Kharkiv is back under Ukrainian control. The capital, Kiev, is also putting up a fight, while explosion after explosion goes off near the heart of the city. A war just outside the window. Many flee to subway stations when they hear air raid sirens.
With my family, I moved to our relatives' place because they are closer to the metro station, and there is a better opportunity to run down the metro station itself if heavy bombing take place.
In the east, apartment buildings in ruins, a gas pipeline and an oil depot in flames. In an effort to stop the destruction, Ukraine's president agrees to peace talks. The Ukrainian and Russian delegations will meet without any preconditions. Frankly speaking, I do not really believe in the outcome of the meeting. Meanwhile, new satellite images show a convoy of hundreds of Russian military vehicles approaching the capital, a sign that the fighting there may become even more intense.
And DW correspondent Matthias Berlinger is in western Ukraine at the moment, and I asked him earlier what could we expect from these planned talks between Ukraine and Russia.
Trust in Russia is understandably very low. Now we have the impression, or we can say, that the war has not gone so far as Russia had expected it. The offensives are stuck. They meet with fierce resistance from the Ukrainians, and the best guess would be that these negotiations are about winning time for Russia from the Russian side. It's not very logical to build up an army for months with the purpose of attacking a country, openly basically displaying its power, then attacking, and after 3 days rethinking and offering some other kind of solution. So either Russia thinks they have already pressured Ukraine enough into agreeing to their terms, which is not the case from the Ukrainian perspective, or they're just winning time.
It was Matthias Berlinger in western Ukraine there. Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin has put his so-called deterrence forces, including nuclear-armed forces, on high alert. In a video distributed by the Kremlin, Putin said NATO powers have made aggressive statements towards Russia. He also pointed to economic sanctions that will cut off Russian banks from international transactions. Putin's blaming the West for his decision on this nuclear announcement.
Not only are Western countries taking unfriendly economic steps against our country, I mean the illegal sanctions that everyone knows about very well, but the top officials of leading NATO countries are also making aggressive statements about our country. Therefore, I order the Minister of Defense and the Chief of the General Staff to put the deterrent forces of the Russian military to a special mode of combat duty.
DW correspondent Emily Sherwin is here with me. Until recently, she worked in our bureau in Moscow until, of course, Russia withdrew her journalistic accreditation and shut DW's operations there. Emily, it's great to have you here. We just heard Vladimir Putin just speak. What's your main takeaway from what he said?
Well, he said that Russia's deterrent forces were to be placed on standby, and he said that that was in response to the fact that the leaders of NATO were kind of making aggressive statements towards Russia. So it was very much him saying that he was responding and also kind of throwing his weight around, I think. But this isn't the first time that we've heard similar statements from him recently. Last week, for example, he also said that any country that meddles in what's happening will face consequences that you've never faced in your history before. So I think that's a pretty clear nuclear threat as well. And I think it's a clear message to the West as well that Ukraine is Russia's sphere of influence and that they should keep out of this.
So some very clear messages there, as you say. Now, Emily, for the first time, Russian authorities have admitted that Russian soldiers have been killed during this invasion. What does this tell us?
Well, I think that this could be a change in narrative because so far on state TV, the narrative has very much been this is going to be a quick operation. We're going to go in, and state TV has been talking about, I heard them saying, scalpel-like accuracy. They said that they're not going to be hitting any civilian infrastructure, that they'll just be hitting military infrastructure, institutions, and so on. The perfect operation was kind of the narrative so far. Today, they had to admit that there have been, victims when it comes to the Russian army. They didn't mention any numbers, so they've been quite vague.